Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Thank you, Jason, for engineering the broadcast. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up 712-770-9418. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Welcome, Rick.
The wind-up. Hi, Benny. It's nice to be back.
Oh, it's great to hear your voice. I'm so glad that you had some time to spend tweaking ASU. So, Rick, I wanted to mention something to you as we begin this class. Back in 1982, there was a book published by a guy named Tom Peters. He and Robert Waterman wrote this book. It was called In Search of Excellence. It was a bestseller. It sold a lot of copies in its first 4 years, and it was the definitive book on management, corporate management. What makes some companies better than others? And back then, they had names that we'd recognize. IBM was one of them. What made IBM better than Sperry Univac and its competitors? What made McDonald's better than Burger King and Wendy's and all the rest of them at that time? What made Disney better than its competitors, meaning the theme park Disney? And it had to do with paying attention to detail. It really did. And
using real Girl Scouts.
And in their cookies, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can't be too serious about things. Management, get a grip. Yeah.
Well,
everything's going to come apart at the seams.
Well, that's where I'm going with this. We are coming apart at the seams.
Good.
So here's what they did. They looked at what made companies really, really good. Now, if you think about it, Sears, Roebuck and Company was the definitive store. It had a catalog that was 2 inches thick, maybe 2.5 inches thick. They sold everything. You could buy a well pump. You could buy a well pipe. You could buy paint, clothes, washers, dryers. You could even buy a house kit, from Sears, Roebuck and Company. It was the Amazon of its day. I believe that one of the reasons that it failed, of course, was greed, but also they stopped paying attention to their customer and to details. All right. So what Tom Peters talked about, one of the things that he said in his book was that in Disney, the guy that has the white pants and the white shirt with the little broom and the dustbin on a stick, sweeping up cigarette butts and candy wrappers and pieces of paper and trash. He's the guy that got asked the most often. So how do I get to the Magic Kingdom? Where's the Magic Kingdom? Over and over, hundreds of times per day. And he was told that, look, the guy that just asked you where the Magic Kingdom is not the guy that asked you before that and before that. So each one of these people is different. And don't beat them up. Don't beat them up because they asked the same question as other people have asked for years, every day. So they were told to be polite and to to be nice to the customers. That's no longer happening. There's a story in Florida. And the story is that at the Miami-Dade airport, there was a woman, I watched the video, and she was kind of annoyed. And she went up to this Florida cop. There were 3 of them there. And she got in his face and she said, "You're acting like you're white, but you're really black." So it's a black woman telling this, and this is the quote from this black woman, to this cop, you're acting like you're white, but you're really black. What are you going to do? Now, she was in his face. And what did the cop do? Sucker punched her, knocked her to the ground, and hit her again. Here's where we are. This is just one indication of why people are angry. People are losing their minds, like this black woman. She's angry because she either missed her flight or her flight was delayed. One of the two. That's what the story says. So she's angry, and the cop just doesn't take it anymore and just decks her. We have lost our minds. We are not polite anymore. And Rick, I just wanted to mention that it is not the world of the 1980s where we were way more polite and we were concerned about our customers. I can't see this getting any better anytime soon. Out your way, are you seeing evidence of this kind of behavior?
Yeah, even more. The different generations are becoming more pronounced. You can tell one from the other, and it isn't because I'm getting old.
Okay, so tell us what
like
you mean.
Driving. Okay, that means the value of a war baby was different than a baby boomer. Gen X. Huh. And I don't even know what they call the 20-year-olds now. That is not a Gen X anymore. They're more like I don't know. Are they alien? Do you hear that noise in the background?
I do.
Okay, so I had the field. I'm going to change subject just real briefly because I want you to hear that sound. And it's related. I had a field down below me. It was beautiful. And maybe I'm glamping it or something. A pond. We nuked it all down, put a house down there, a big house with lawn. Now, we're in the country, up in the hills. We don't do lawns. You know what I mean? This guy's like downtown. Why would he do that? And then his property has a mountain of logs because he's logging this one hill that is completely seared. I mean, I remember a time when hippies used to go hug a tree and stop that nonsense. This guy's got a big pile. He started at 4:30 this morning.
Okay, let me see if I've got this right, Rick. You're saying that you live in sort of the wilderness in that area.
I'm in the mountains, Oregon, forest. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And there's a guy who's cutting down the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of trees. Okay. I absolutely, and he's a new guy, new to the village, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, he's an excavator. He's one of the people that put in housing projects. He thinks like I don't know what that is.
Okay, well, I despise that kind of behavior, and I'll tell you why. Because when we lived in Virginia, our house adjoined my parents' property. So their house was about 700 feet away from our house. Our house was completely surrounded, except for one little bit, by woods. And that little bit was the driveway. So you drove through this area that was woods to get to the house. And our house was peaceful and calm. My parents built their house 700 feet away on a little knoll, and my mom called it high winds. Her house was so windy, you'd get windburn just being outside. Our house, 700 feet away, was peaceful and calm. And the difference was the trees. And what happened over the years that they lived there, there was all kinds of logging going on. People were cutting down every piece of timber they could find and turning it into logs and power poles and the like. By cutting down the trees, you increase the wind. And it's terrible. I mean, the heating costs go up, the cooling costs go up, everything goes up. The maintenance goes up, the shingles blow off the roof, trash blows everywhere. There were Walmart bags in all the fences, all the barbed wire fences had Walmart bags stuck in them. Walmart bags were stuck in the trees. It was a blight. And it was because of the logging. So I understand what you're saying, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
It's like the Templar that in the 14th century looking down at this little village sleeping, and he says to his troop, kill them all, let God sort out his own. The value systems are in conflict with each other in the different generations just locally, neighbor to neighbor.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. We have neighbors.
crazy. I remember when a neighbor come over and welcome to the neighborhood and bring you some big bread or something, a gift. My neighbor gave me a cord of wood. I couldn't believe it. Split everything. He has a splitter, so it isn't so bad. But, it's the values are different now, even in the country. And we don't have much country anymore. It's all urban. And that's one of the things that is going to change. Whether you like it or not, we're going to have to become more decentralized. That's a fact. The virus and all of its glory and splendor, and they're making a rerun, page 2. Watch what happens. A friend of mine from the military called, and he said, Rick, prep up. This is your order. And what he was telling me is between now and November, there's going to be a failure in retirement for seniors. And if you think that this virus was an inconvenience, oh man, it's going to get real weird. And I grew up in Seattle. We don't have a Chaz, whatever that is. We had the Central District, CD. CD was a black neighborhood because they were less fortunate. Garfield, that's where Jimi Hendrix came out of. So we didn't have prejudice in Seattle. It was a real close town. It's changed. I don't even understand it anymore. I read in the newspaper and it just doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know what's going on.
Well, Rick, I believe you used the term failure in retirement. What did you mean by failure in retirement?
Well, I got a mouthful. I'm eating breakfast.
Why don't you do that during the break?
Man has a response. What's that?
Why don't you do that during the break?
Okay.
Why don't you do that during the break?
Roger. Oh, thank you. I'm coffee. You know how it is. I'm sorry. I just got up. Okay. Thank you, Vinny. May I have another? All right. Sarge, you're right, of course. And I've had to rethink things lately in how I do what I do. I was just normally welcome to the neighborhood, come on in. But I won't let anybody in my home anymore. Nobody. Well, you. But.
Well, Rick, I don't either. Literally, people have called.
This guy.
Okay.
It wasn't about Albert Schweitzer. By the way, I'm having to change Albert Schweitzer's name. It's going to be Oak Institute. Why? Matt Abe Aberello had these assets that he never used, so he gave me one. But there were strings that I didn't know about. And it was going to be a Harry Potter-like school on magic. And that's all. But because of the hiatus and the terrible things that happened to me when I tried to open it, I started to rethink things and had a vision.
All right, hold that thought. We're going into a break. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, richardallenmiller.com. Rick, during the break, I was looking at the dictionary online, and they removed the word polite. So we don't need to be.
Oh, Vinny, you just curveball after it. This is my spitball. Here we go.
Well,
Jesus, Vinny, that's great. I love it.
Who's polite anymore, Rick?
What?
Who's polite anymore?
No.
Who's polite anymore?
No, nobody's polite anymore because everybody's a sucker. Here, watch me. Let's see what I can do.
Rick, so you were talking about Albert Schweitzer University and a name change. What's that all about?
So I talked to Abe for the last 10 years or so about doing a little metaphysical thing, but for children rather than, like Harry Potter. A little different, but, like Harry Potter school. Super califragilistic. Bang. But during the hiatus, I had a vision, and I tried to pull it off, and one thing led to another, and there were backups failed. How does that work? I mean, in other words, I got it all covered, and it still didn't work. So what happened is I got to thinking about things, and I had an epiphany, like I did when I wrote Holographic Concept of Reality. What happens with me was that I'm going along normal, rude, and non-polite, and then I go, bloop, and then I come up with something, and off I go, and everything changes because it's world, like holographic. I was the guy that did that. I had Max Rempel drive all the way up from San Diego last week. He was a Russian, right, from Moscow, and he settled into San Diego to write on the genome, and he was quoting from his teacher, who almost got a Nobel Prize, and that guy was keying on my work back in the 70s. And so Max Rempel and I became really good friends, and now there's 2 generations working with the DNA as a biohologram resonant cavity oscillator. Hoorah. And you ought to see where we're going on this with proton clouds and what you can do next. We change the movie. All right. You know, what do you want to do? That's the problem. Most people don't realize that all roads lead to Rome, but you need a North Star to know which direction you're going in. And that is the bottom line, because we're all going to the same place, except some people are going in there backwards. Man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain. If you start thinking about apocalypse, you can count on it. Now,
okay, so you mentioned that some are going backwards. Rick, the United States.
Is that something about Chuck Norris running the gauntlet? No. It's called the gauntlet. It's potlatch. The Indians had a name for it, I'll tell you. But I'll tell you what. When you realize that everything happens for a reason, and everything leads to something better, this, social distancing should have happened 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And knock on wood, hopefully they'll keep it after everything gets back to craziness. I don't know how that's going to play. But when they send our children home 2 months early, and they're not even, and it may not even open in the fall, and with a new insurgence in the virus, what's going to happen to those children for education? What are you going to do at home?
That's a really good point. So when you talked about some people are going backwards, it's absolutely crystal clear to me that our country is going backwards. Now, some things
some
we're
are going
doing
this way, some are going that way. The thing is, it's polarized, and because that's what man does. He sees something, and it's either good or evil. It's absolute, and God is neither. The thing is, you can't see the whole big picture, and so what's good for one person may not be for another. Like if you were born in Pakistan, you couldn't be a Christian because of the country and the way it is. It's not possible. Buddhism is not really a religion per se. It's a system of beliefs, and they're different ones, that allow more access to the universe. That's why it evolved to that over generations of epochs. And
Rick, hold that thought. We're going into a break. I want to just let our class know that the call screen is lighting up. G, you're up next, and I see another call coming in as well. So we'll be with you right after the break. Well, I just can't believe it. During the bottom of the hour news that we just heard, we heard the term 4th of July weekend. Yeah, we celebrate July 4th because it's the 4th, not the 3rd, not the 7th. It's the 4th. No, it's Independence Day. Independence Day. It's not Hot Dog Day. It's not Barbecue Day. It's not Grill Day. It's Independence Day. And I heard another term, the word leaders. Our leaders. Our leaders. What is this? Our leaders have lost their minds. They have no idea what to do. These people that we have attributed the term leaders to. They're not leaders. They're clueless. That's what we should call them. Clueless. G in New York. Welcome. You're on with Dr.
Came from Troy.
You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome.
Yeah. Leader came from Troy, base 12. Now, moving forward.
Wait, Rick, we've got G in New York. G, are you there? G, are you there?
Vince, yes, I am, Vince. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
No, can't hear you at all. Why? Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm not sure how your format works, but are you talking about a certain subject right now?
We talk about the difference in my educational system that I thought was going to be a Harry Potter-like school, but I had a vision. And guess what? According to Project Looking Glass, if this, my vision, not the metaphysics, the vision happens, a 6-year-old's children will never know war.
Rick, I believe I know this student in our class, G. Do I know you?
Of course you do.
Okay, you've never called, you've never called in.
I got a New York.
No, I've never called in, and we love you guys.
So
I love it.
Welcome, G. Class, let me tell you who G is. G is a gentleman who I've met. We've been to many conventions together, typically history type military conventions where there's lots of experts who have been to war and they share their stories in some of the largest conventions in the country. Typically conventions like the Show of Shows, the MAX, which is the Military Antiques Extravaganza. And so I've known G for years. I haven't seen him for years. He spends a lot of time with our son. And by the way, G, I don't use the names of our children on the air, and I don't use the name of Mrs. Finelli. So it's Mrs. Finelli and our children. Okay, just so they don't get harassed because of because of my behavior.
Totally understand.
So what's happening in New York, G?
Well, we just had the whole Black Lives Matter thing finally come to an end here. But I'll tell you something interesting. I live in Long Island, about a 30-minute train drive from Manhattan. And during the worst of the worst nights, there was a group of guys pulling out ATM machines with their car and chains and hooks. I guess that's a good scam. What happened was when they eventually got caught, the whole gang of 9 or I forgot, maybe 15 of them, they were all from Maine. Okay? Most of the people that were protesting in Manhattan, there seemed to be a group of maybe about 100 of them that were wearing these black shirts, Black Lives Matter, and a certain weird type of military, like M43 cap. These people were not native New Yorkers. They were asking how to get to where, what train will take me to where, general directions that someone that lived out in the suburbs or 100 miles away would know. And we here just think it's despicable. We don't see color here. To us, all lives matter, and we just think that this whole scene was despicable.
New York is the only place when an elevator opens and you can pick a country in the couple. And that's one's from Croatia and the wife is from Spain.
The mayor caved into them, and he's taken $1 billion away out of the police department. And they broke them up, but there's still a small core of them. I don't know what they're waiting for. I guess they're waiting to be arrested, and their wish will be soon granted. But everyone here is just.
I know, and you know what? The thing I didn't understand were the pallets of bricks that were independently laid in different street corners for the rioters. Who did that? What was that for? Did you catch that one?
No, well, I'm sorry, what was that?
Well, during these riots, the Black Matters, something would deliver a pallet of bricks right for the mob to grab.
Oh,
no construction.
Well, we heard similar stories of, one story was someone conveniently showed up with these little bit extra long crowbars because the streets nearby were these several 100-year-old streets that were still cobblestoned. And all of a sudden they began handing out these bars. And from what I heard, people were saying, what do you want us to do with us? Attack the cops with them? No, they showed them how to pull up these cobblestones to haul off at the police.
Yeah, I've seen it all. I don't understand.
It's just horrible. I've heard about them dumping the bricks and from reliable sources. I totally believe it. It was in more than one spot.
Gee,
a few spots.
Gee, I was reading a story last night about these couple hundred protesters. They have pitchforks, and they have descended on the Hamptons. Now, the Hamptons is sort of near you, right? It's a very wealthy area. Mayor Bloomberg lives in the Hamptons. And between 100 cars and a couple hundred marchers went to these very expensive, wealthy homes, including the ex-city mayor, Mike Bloomberg of New York City. And what they're saying is tax the rich, not the poor. Tax the rich, not the poor. And they're also saying that the looting is done by the wealthy. Now, that's correct. The looting is done by the wealthy. They have fleeced the little people. Now, what is they're also doing something that we predicted would happen. We said that the protesters, and so far it's been peaceful, that they would show up at the homes of the wealthy, the homes of the people who allegedly are in government, positions of representation, those people, and they would show up with wanted posters. And here they are. They've shown up with wanted posters of the people who are in government. Here it is.
Yeah.
And we said it was going to happen.
They spin wrong.
10 days ago or so, we said this was going to happen, and here it is. So what is your take on protesters going to the Hamptons?
That's probably not going to work because their police department is going to protect them. And it's a very narrow entry to get into the Hamptons. The end of Long Island splits to a North Fork and a South Fork, and it's very narrow. Long Island Railroad comes in, but again, they're just not going to let that happen. And besides, most of these wealthy people have their own arsenal. And believe me, they're not going to let people come on their property, I can tell you that.
Gee, I've got a side story I want to share with our class. So for years, I wore this silver ring. And it was kind of like a class ring. But it was a little different from, let's say, a high school or college, ring. And
right.
And people would say, "Oh, is that your school ring?" And I'd say, "It's from my alma mater." And they'd say, "Wow, can I look at it?" And I would take it off. And you know what it said on it?
San Quentin.
Yeah, that is. That's great, man.
Well, hey, do you want to tell that story about how that happened?
I don't remember how you got it. I just remember you got it at the show, and I've been wanting that ring from the second I saw it. Really, I'm always telling your son, I'm like, tell your dad I'll trade him anything he wants for that ring. I don't remember who you got it from. I just know that I think it was made in the prison machine shop. I
can tell you how it was, yes. Because I'm doing a screenplay right now for a book that's called Once Upon a Time at San Quentin. John Golden lives here in Oregon, just up the street. And he with a second-generation guard that took pictures like he wasn't supposed to. And they tell 1,000 words, where the Code of Silence or some of the other mythologies that came out of San Quentin that distinguished it. There's a difference between a prison and a penitentiary. Penitentiary was started, by the way, by Quaker to rehab people and bring them back out into society. A prison is about money.
Huh. So, G, you're absolutely right about that ring, and it's the most fun when someone asks me about that ring because it looks so different, and I say it's my alma mater, and I say with an absolute straight face.
Oh man!
But
it might just be from someone that did get out and went to a jeweler and had it made. It's that well done. It is done very, very, very well.
It's probably done on campus, probably. I'm guessing. I can ask John for you if you'd like. But
Class,
it would have to be a prominent prisoner that would be allowed. It's in silver, right?
Someone that knew how to use a Bridgeport mill.
Guys,
right.
One at a time, please, because we're stepping on each other. Just let one person talk at a time. So, G,
Sorry, yeah.
it's all of us because we have a delay here. But this ring, class, is absolutely spectacular. If you want to see it, if you want to see what this ring looks like, you can just go to your search engine and you can type in San Quentin ring and click on images and you'll see it. It's a broad-faced ring, and I believe it could have been made out of a silver dollar, hammered and hammered and hammered, or it could be sterling. But it is absolutely handmade, and there are not many of them. If there's maybe a handful, right, G?
That could be the only one. He could have made a couple for his buddies. Since I first laid eyes on that thing, I was like, how can I get this from Vince? He'll never let it go.
G,
remember me in your will.
Hey, G, I'll tell you what. This is the first time you've called in, and I do know, G. Class, G, how about someday you come on the air with me and we'll talk about rings, because you are a ring expert. I mean, seriously, class. G is an expert in historical rings. Would you consider that?
Yeah, sure. If you think there's an interest on it.
Yeah. Doc Rams with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. G is called in from New York. G, I have a question for you that probably only you can answer. And we've been talking around the dinner table and the lunch table and the breakfast table here at the farm in Missouri with the boys and Mrs. Finelli. And the question that we have asked ourselves is, do we know one person for sure who has had the coronavirus? And the answer is we do not. Now, your wife has a close association with the hospital system in New York. I don't want to say where or her name, but she does. And she's involved with the hospital system daily and has been for years.
Yes. Yes.
And you know a lot of people in New York, and New York is densely packed. Do you know of people who have had the coronavirus or people in their families who have had it?
Okay, so she is the clinical engineering director for one of the biggest hospitals right in Manhattan now. She used to work in Long Island, but now she's in Manhattan. Clinical engineering are mechanics. They fix medical pumps, baby warmers, beds, you name it, that's what they have to fix. And they had to go through all these ventilators, and that's another, you could do a whole program on that. Vince, there was a few weeks there where we had so many bodies that they were in 2 storage trucks that we shared with another hospital down the block. So they had 2 trucks in a lot, and we had our 2 trucks in the same lot. Now, the problem is death certificates. We couldn't get death certificates for these bodies. It takes a while, a couple of days, sometimes to get a death certificate, here in New York at least anyway, and the bodies were just coming in so quick, and the people giving the certificates were missing and whatnot, and just a total breakdown that people were breaking down. I mean, my wife's guys, she had, I think, she has a team of 23 guys total because it's 24-hour shift, and she probably had half of them come down with it and get very sick. But these are young, healthy guys, most of them ex-military, by the way. But sure, we know a bunch of people that died from corona here. And some of them were in perfect health. One guy runs marathons and everything, and a non-smoker, a non-drinker, and he just didn't make it.
Here's
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Here's the question, G. So cutting right to the chase. Would you say, now some people say that the coronavirus is a fake, it's a fraud, it's BS. You're at ground zero. Is it a fake? Is it fraud? Is it BS? Or is it real?
I would have to say it's real. It's just another strain of a flu. There are other coronaviruses. This one is just a new one, that's listen, I know people
the problem with this is that it spreads fast, and most people aren't healthy. That's what the problem is. It isn't the virus itself. The virus itself is a normal virus, except that it spreads quickly. That means everybody's going to get it. That means statistically that you're going to have a body count, because right now nobody's healthy, and we're not talking about fat. We're talking about obese in Oregon, and we had 47 deaths in Oregon. Now, is that good or bad? Well, we had that same amount in alcohol, so there it is.
Yeah.
So something else is going on, and
it's tightly compact areas. I mean, you have 100,000 people using the same railing coming up out of the train station.
Big cities, that's right.
Yeah, you're going to get, people in the Bronx that live in these giant projects. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, and there's, 9 people living in there.
There it is.
And
that's what the problem is.
Yeah, every single apartment. Yeah, every single apartment is
Rick, one at a time, please. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
Go ahead, G.
I'm just exuberant. Sorry.
Go ahead, G.
Tightly packed areas are going to get it. And the other states that were very lucky in the beginning that didn't get it, they, Florida, Texas, all of them were laughing at us in the beginning. And guess what?
Right.
They got it now.
Yeah.
They got it.
G, you are a student of history, and you have been before I knew you, and I've known you for probably over a decade.
Easily
over a decade. And, G, are you and because you're a student of history, and because you are so well versed in history, do you see history repeating itself from before to now with the coronavirus? Do you see any commonalities?
Spanish flu. They thought they had it beat. They started reopening quickly, and the same exact thing happened that's happening now. We had that resurgence.
We're going into the top of the hour break. Would you like to stay with us?
Sure. Yeah, I got some time.
Great. Okay. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Dear friend. G is with us in New York. Dear friend. And we refer to G as G, the letter G. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us on the West Coast, and G is in New York. G, I have a question for you. And then, Rick, if you'd like to answer after G, that'd be great. I used to be on other broadcasters' programs, and that stopped months ago. I would be invited to be on, and that stopped. I'm no longer invited to be on other broadcasters' programs because I've been saying since day one, months and months ago, that the coronavirus is real. It's infectious. And it's deadly, and that the supply chain would break and continue to break, and that it's not going to end anytime soon. G, do you have any comments about the coronavirus, what I've said and what I maintain? And I have not yielded nor changed my position for months. I still say it's deadly, it's infectious, and it's real, and the supply chain is broken, and it's continuing to break more every day. Any comments about that?
I think you're 100% right. It's real. I mean, we were losing 800 people a day here for about a week, dying, not positive cases. These are deaths. It spreads quick. Anyone can get it. Rich, poor, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Anyone can. It's just no rhyme or reason how it kills. Like I said, totally healthy people, young people, and then you'll have someone that's 200 pounds overweight, asthma and everything else, and he'll make it, and he'll get through it. He's 67 years old, and he made it. So, yeah, it seems to be, heavily populated, concentrated areas. And, everyone wants to come visit New York, and people were here and they went back home, and people from New York went to Disneyland, and it just got spread everywhere. And it's going to be a while.
What about the supply chain? What are you seeing with the supply chain? Obviously, toilet paper is a tough one, but what else?
Toilet paper recently is not a problem. Since this started months ago, you cannot buy like a Clorox wipe, the pre-made wipes in the containers. Mm-hmm. We still can't get those right now. I cannot get Lysol spray bleach. And only about a month ago, we started getting in hand sanitizers. I had a neighbor that was using vodka and aloe vera and made his own sterilization gel. I mean, that's how bad it got. No, I mean, I was lucky we could get it from the hospital. But it's still some problems. Meat, certain food stuff here, you cannot get.
Okay, ground beef, sometimes it's called hamburger, sometimes it's called chopped meat.
Right.
We call it ground beef. And I'm talking about like the 80-20, nothing special. 80-20,
right.
So 20% fat. That's $4 a pound on sale. What is it in your neck of the woods in New York?
Oh boy, I don't know, Vince. I'm really sorry. That I don't even have a flyer to look at. I know it's expensive. Same thing with chicken. Kosher chicken, I heard, is 5-10 times the price. We had a lot of price gouging with everything here for a while, and then they clamped down on it and stopped it. But yeah, toilet paper, it's not a joke. That was a serious thing for a couple of months. Luckily, we always keep a case in the house. I mean, it's only 2 of us. Mm-hmm. So it's going to last. Why people are filling up trucks and there's only like 2 or 3 of them, I don't know. I mean, people told me they were selling it on eBay for, $10 a roll. So,
jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, I'm looking forward to having you on the air as an instructor at USA Prepares. Class, I can tell you that 100% of us don't take direction very well. G certainly fits that bill. I'm including myself, and all the other instructors, Rick Miller, all of us, Norm Shealy. We don't take direction very well. So, G, how did you find us? I mean, this is the first time you called in.
Yeah, I had been asking your son, but when we talk, we always have so many other things to talk about. We only speak a few times a year, and we only see each other usually once a year. And I kept saying, come on, man, send me this link to your dad's show. Come on. And it just never happened until recently. Mm-hmm. And, I said, I got to check this out. So here I am, for better or worse.
For better. Absolutely. Gee, I'm so glad you called in. Is there anything else you want to share with Rick Miller?
I have such a quick question, guys.
Sure.
Prep a question. These straws that you sip water through to make, water clean, you could sip like muddy water.
Yeah.
Are they good? And if they are, what would be the best brand to get?
Okay. I'm going to probably say something that people are going to be shocked at. considering that I am in the aisle of preparedness. I would say you're way better off doing something else. And here's what I would do. I would get a Pro Pure water filtration system. And I would bring my water with me. So here's what it is. It's a stainless steel canister with a stainless steel spigot. There's a top and bottom canister. The one we have holds about 3 gallons on the top, 3 gallons on the bottom. We take tap water, which happens to be from our well, but it could be tap water from, New York City. And you pour it in the top, and there's a possibility of up to 4 filter elements. We put one in at a time, one filter element at a time, and it has carbon, activated carbon or charcoal in a shell that is a ceramic shell on the outside that contains the carbon granules, and it's infused with silver threads or silver. So the silver is a disinfectant, and the shell filters out the big chunks, when I say big chunks, I'm really talking microscopic. But and then the water that flows through the shell gets weaves its way through the activated charcoal, which removes the heavy metals and so forth. And it also removes fluoride and chlorine. So it takes out pretty much everything you could possibly want, and the biologicals are neutralized by the silver. So it does it all. And it's made by a company called Pro Pure, Propur. I recommend that. And if you want one, let our son know, and I'll make sure you get one. They are, in my opinion, the best. That's what we have on the kitchen counter. As for the straws, they're going to plug up very quickly. They were a fad many years ago. I've seen them. I've handled them. I have never used one. I don't think that the thing that really, really works, G, is time. So, if you, let's contrast this with let's say a filter made for the kitchen faucet. You screw this thing on the end, take the aerator off, you screw on this module with activated charcoal, you turn your faucet on and it's filtered. Well, the water that goes through that filter goes through so fast that it does not have enough time to remove the toxins and the heavy metals. What you really want is a gravity flow, real slow drip, drip, drip speed. Right. And that gives the water time to be processed. That's the best way to go. If you have one of these little sip straws and, you're applying vacuum to pull water through, it's at a rate that's way too fast. The filter medium is too small in my opinion. It's just my opinion. I'm sure that this can be challenged, but I'm not going to use one. So your best, and they're like $30 or $20, or at least they were. Yeah. So I would spend the $250 or so, get the canister, get some replacement elements, and use one element at a time. And you can, there are 4 holes for 4, filter elements. You plug 3 of them up, use one filter at a time. That way you'd have the maximum efficiency in terms of dollar efficiency for filtered water. It'll filter, let's say 1,200 gallons. And before you replace the filter, that is absolutely by far the best approach. Now, the next thing to answer your question, which I'm pretty sure you've got in mind but did not ask, is what about testing water and making sure the water is good in the first place? My response to that is forget it. Forget testing the water.
It's all bad, yeah.
Well, and that's one thing. It's all bad. It starts out bad, and then it gets enhanced with fluoride and chlorine to make it even more dangerous. But the point is, let's say you did test it, and it's perfect today. Is it perfect this afternoon? You don't know.
Right.
You'll never know unless you keep testing before each sip. All right. So that being the case, let's assume that it's bad in the first place, and let's treat it as if it's bad with a water filtration system. And the ProPure, in my opinion, is a great way to go. Great way to go. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yes and no. Yes, for a more, where you set up. I always look at the extreme where, hey, I have to leave my home. We're going to pack as little as possible to get one to a safe home. People, Western Pennsylvania, wherever. And I got room for bullets and clothes, and I might not have enough room for a big tank of water, but maybe I would have to. I don't trust any water. Up in the Catskills, there's this beautiful water coming out. I would still wouldn't drink from it.
Okay, so here's the answer. When you collapse this ProPure water filtration system, it's going to be in a box 1 foot by 1 foot by, let's say, 18 inches. Okay, that's the size of the box, and most of the space inside that box is empty. So you can put your bullets, your rounds, your cartridges in that empty space. Okay? And all you have to do is find a water source. Now, if you find muddy water, what I would do, if I were in a desperate way, I would take off my shirt, my t-shirt, and I would fold it into multiple layers, and I would filter that muddy water through my t-shirt and my shirt, and I would take out most of the mud. Then I would put that water into the ProPure water filtration canister and filter it and make it crystal clear drinkable.
Nice. Yeah, I was just wondering about, something to use to get from here to there. My wife was taught some pretty weird things. She was brought up in the Soviet Union during communist times, and she knows how to make a pretty good water filter with, 5-gallon bucket. And
that's right. Now that's bigger. That's bigger than this ProPure. Yes, you can. And you can do it with sand. You can have
with sand,
sand and gravel and that t-shirt on the bottom. Yes, you can. But it's nowhere near as good unless it has activated charcoal and silver as the ProPure water filtration system. So my advice to you, living where you live, is to have one. And if you got to go, take that with you. Put your cartridges inside. Put your other tools inside that you're going to need. And if someone stops you, say, listen, just a second. Is it okay if I give you my water filter? And you open it up. And you say, well, I changed my mind. Here's some bullets. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. G's with us in New York. Class, just a quick update. We broadcast off-grid here at the farm. And the power just went down. And my son and Mrs. Finelli came in and said, hey, the power's down. So, my computers are still running here in the studio. The digital gear is still operational fine because it's on uninterruptible power supported by an off-grid battery bank. So even though the sun's not shining too well, we still have enough power to broadcast. So that's just kind of the way it is. And you might want to think about that. And as we go further down this road toward the Corona panic enhanced, and that's my term, Corona panic, I believe that the grid is going to be more unstable. I believe we're going to have rolling brownouts and rolling blackouts and brownouts. And the term blackout means no electricity, like lights out kind of thing. Rolling blackouts is when the utility companies say, well, we don't have enough electricity to supply everybody, so we will turn it off in certain areas at a time. So we'll shut this area off, and then we'll shut the next area off and bring the first area back on, and that's a rolling blackout. A rolling brownout is we don't have enough electricity, but if we reduce the voltage to certain areas and give them less current, and we'll treat everybody fairly, so we'll give everybody less over time, that would be a rolling brownout. And brownouts are really bad because if you have elevators, they need full voltage and full current for those motors to operate, or they'll burn out. Same thing with washing machines, same thing with refrigeration, freezers, air conditioning, and so forth. And I'm predicting, I'm not advocating this, I have no say in it anyway, I believe that as the summer gets hotter and people use more and more air conditioning, we're going to have rolling blackouts, brownouts, blackouts, and brownouts. So I had one other quick question for G, and then I'd like to hear Dr. Richard Allen Miller's points of view. G, you probably listen to radio out of New York City. How is USA Prepares different from a radio that is over-the-air radio that you hear in your neck of the woods in New York?
Vince, I haven't listened to the radio in probably 30 years.
Okay. Well, good for you.
Serious.
Good for you.
I'll watch some TV occasionally, And again, there's very little that you can believe. It's not a news program anymore. It's an entertainment program.
Yeah.
And your rolling blackout theory is totally, I mean, everybody is home when they're usually at work. So they're home, it's 90 degrees here. Everyone's got their AC on, and it's 11:20 in the morning.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just probably going to get worse. You can't go to the beach. I mean, I live a mile from one of the greatest beaches on the East Coast, and we can't go to it.
Okay,
so yeah, that's around the corner.
So here's the next quick question. So the lights go out, okay? Meaning the grid goes down. And let's say it's 11:30, 11:20. You find out that you don't have electricity. What do you envision happening in your neck of the woods? So 11:20, power goes out. What happens at 11:21, 11:22, 11:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock? What happens? Still no power.
Well, unfortunately, in my area, I lost my house in Hurricane Irene, and then 2 years later, I lost it again in Superstorm Sandy. Almost everyone I know around this, we're an incorporated village, 2,500 homes. I would say everybody has a generator. Everybody. Serious, everybody. The rest of the people, I don't know. If it was going to be more than a day, there'd be some problems.
Okay.
I'll
tell you what, let's have you back, as I'm welcoming you as an instructor right now. I'm looking forward to it. And let's have, it comes with all the rights and privileges and compensation, of which there's none. As an instructor, I think it'd be wonderful. And we can talk about, those kinds of things. I really appreciate you calling in, G, and I'd like to hear, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, our resident physicist, thoughts on what I said about, I haven't been told I've been shunned, but it's clear that I'm not welcome talking about the COVID-19, the corona panic, and the ensuing disruption. I'd love to hear Rick Miller's thoughts on that. Gee, thank you so much for calling in.
My pleasure, Vince. My pleasure. I'll get with your son, and we'll get some exchange some emails and calls, and we'll set everything up.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Thanks so much.
Doc, pleasure talking to you.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. In class, if you want to see that ring that I have, my old alma mater, San Quentin, you can just go to the Internet, type in your favorite search engine. Hopefully that'll be a DuckDuckGo. And you can type in San Quentin, SanQuentin, ring, R-I-N-G, and you'll see a silver ring that says San Quentin State Prison, and it's hand engraved with with the guard tower. It's all there, and it's quite interesting. Now, how it got on the Internet, I have no idea. There may be several of them, but that's the ring. That is the ring that I have. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Richard A-L-A-N Miller, MILLER.com. Rick, I mentioned that I haven't been invited to any other broadcasts since I've been saying that the coronavirus is real. The corona panic is what would ensue from the virus. The supply chain would break and continue to get worse, and that we're not getting out of this anytime soon. Do you have any comments about any of that? Me being, banned, if you will. Not explicitly, but I'm sorry.
That's okay. I've got a very poor connection. Everything that you're saying is correct. The virus is dangerous, but mostly it's not any different than any of the other viruses, just that people are not as healthy. And because this one has been designed to spread to everybody, pretty much everybody's going to get it at some point. I was quarantined in March. Did I have the virus? I don't know. I had something. I was so sick, they kept me in quarantine for 6 weeks. And I'm fine. But something else is going on here. It isn't about the virus. There's something else going on. And I can't begin to tell you because anything I could imagine is not only true, it's even more. I mean, in other words, everybody is going to get it probably at some point. Do you get an immunization? That's crazy. It's already been shown that they're toxic, and viruses, by definition, mutate, which means if you get an inoculation, you're going to need another 20 of them as it mutates from here to there. So the best way to prepare on all of this is to start thinking about health and eating correctly. That's a good place to start. Nobody's doing it. Now, I wanted to say something to your friend. One of the things I need to finish what the difference is between a metaphysical church or university and what I have in mind for educational reform. Quite different, never been done before by anybody. But first, the next project, once I get this off, take an old used school bus that had been originally used for a monarch butterfly, going to all the different grade schools run by third graders, showing first graders of the monarch butterfly migrates. That's stupid. Not stupid. It's interesting. I didn't mean it like that. It's not what the children really want to learn. We'll get that in a minute. So what we're going to do is take this old bus and we're going to rig it for a mobile water testing laboratory run by third graders. And the universities have these old microscopes, glassware, whatever, that they're recycling for the students. And so we're going to outfit it with the laboratory so you can take your muddy water and clean it. You can da-da-da-da-da. You want to know an answer? The third grader will show you how to do it. And then the first grader is going to go home and show their parents. Nobody's equipped to do this. Now, this mobile water testing laboratory is going to be a clone. So after we did it locally, we're going to put it on the road. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Where when I stop in your neck of the woods, you get in a bus and you make it exactly like mine. And all these different universities walking my garbage way down the line. Back to the house. All these universities around have boneyards, Boeing surplus. Some of the others, they all have Best Buys. You can get a desk, $40. Normally a $700 desk. Boeing surplus is outfitting them all, and they're giving it away. And the universities are all the same, with double-barrel microscopes and glassware. Now, children are smarter than we are. And so rather than teach a child what I know, and that's why I started aquaponics, my goal was to have that child producing its own food before the end of winter. Imagine that. Now, how I first saw that was when I was in Chattanooga. I saw children growing wildflowers for salad to feed the homeless. Oh, God, you cannot imagine what that child felt by being able to help an adult that couldn't help himself. I mean, it's like a type of empowerment that we should have been doing a long time ago. It had nothing to do with the virus. I was going to teach metaphysics, and then I decided, okay, well, I'll learn how to grow their own food. Someone gave me an aquaponics system, and I'm going to just build it and show the children how to do it and have them growing their own food. But something happened, and I was put in hiatus, and I stopped and paused, and it was necessary because I then realized I was teaching the children what I thought they should know, not what the child wants to know. The child's smarter than me. It already knows what it wants to know. Why are we not doing that for the children? They're smarter than we are.
Okay, I've got an answer for that. Well, Rick, we used to do that. Let me give you an example. So when I was in elementary school, I had a really wonderful teacher. And He wanted to teach us about jet propulsion. And I kid you not. So my elementary school teacher, now this was a teacher who taught all the subjects, okay? Science, history, all the subjects. And that's what we used to do. We didn't have specialization. We didn't have history teachers and science teachers and math teachers. The teachers were teachers and they taught it all. So, this particular teacher wanted to show the class about how jet propulsion worked. Now this is in early grade elementary school. And here's what he did. We each got a block of wood, same size block of wood. Let's say 2 inches by 2 inches and maybe 8 inches long. And we got 2 eye hooks. And we were told where to put the eye hooks on the length of this particular block of wood. And we were told to hollow out the block so it would fit one of these CO2 cartridges, one that you would make seltzer water out of. So let's say this cartridge was 3 inches long. It had a neck on it. You could pierce the neck and out would come CO2. Okay. So we shaped these little rocket ships, if you will, sanded them so that the nose was pointed, hollowed out the balsa wood so that the CO2 cartridge would fit in it. And it had 2 eye hooks. And we had a long, let's say 100-foot long piece of nylon fishing line. And 2 people would hold it. One person at one end, one person at the other end. And at the beginning, there would be, you'd thread the fishing line through these eye hooks, and a person would have a little nail punch and a hammer. The teacher would hold the rocket, tap the hole in the CO2 cartridge at the end of it, and gas would come rushing out. And this rocket would fly down the nylon fishing line.
What year was that?
I don't know, maybe 4th grade.
What year?
1960 something.
Thank you. 64 or 62?
Well, right around there. Right around there.
Okay, thank you.
And that's what we did. Now, I remember that to this day. My rocket actually went the farthest. Now, I don't know why. Maybe it's the way he hit it with the nail punch. Maybe it was the way that, it was like perfect. And it went flying down this nylon string. Now, what did that take? It took an imaginative teacher with the fortitude to say, I'm going to bring my whole class outside and we're going to try this. And the students are going to make their own little rockets and we're going to get to see how all 25 of them work. And I remember that. Now, we also had ant farms in classrooms. We had fish tanks in classrooms, and the students got a chance to each take turns feeding the fish, the goldfish. And we got a chance to see how the fish would grow over time. We saw how the ants would farm their little ant farms, with 2 pieces of glass with dirt in between them. And we got a chance to see how ants would propagate. That's what we did. And now, it's so much better now because we don't have to wait. We can watch it all on the screen. We don't need a microscope anymore. We don't need slides. We don't need the liquids. We don't need the pond water. We can have virtual pond water on virtual slides looking through the lens of a virtual microscope. We can do an ant farm, the rocket ships, the CO2 cartridges, the microscopes. We can all do it in 5 minutes. Total. Because of digital.
Right?
What was that?
Craft chemistry sets.
Right. We were allowed to have chemcraft chemistry sets. We were allowed to use erector sets, which had steel plates, and we learned about leverage and wheels and axles and fulcrums. We were encouraged to do hands-on. Now, heck, you can hurt yourself with a screwdriver. You can hurt yourself with that little tiny wrench. With the erector set, you can actually, spill chemicals. Oh, it's terrible. So we improved all that, and now it's all hands off, and nobody knows how to do anything. So it's taken more money for education, over $10,000 a year for the average student to be babysat, K through 12 in the in the state of Missouri, the corrupt state of Missouri, no different from other corrupt states where education costs roughly $10,000 or $11,000 per head per year for public training, and yet the students have no knowledge. They don't know how to do anything. They can't measure. They can't estimate. They can't add, subtract, multiply, or divide. They certainly can't spell. They can't complete sentences. But they do have that pocket equalizer, the one that can do it for them. I'm talking about the smartphone, the pocket equalizer. Now everybody's an athlete. Everybody's equal. Everybody has the same chance for spelling words correctly with a smartphone. It's ridiculous.
Well, smartphones aren't very smart. They're toxic. Newsflash.
Yeah, right.
And how to pick up your thumb rather than all four fingers.
You know,
5, 6.
Rick, one of the things that I pride myself on, and I don't, I hope this does not sound egotistical, but I do know how to estimate. I really do. I know how far it is from here to there. I know how much it weighs just by looking at it. I know how long it takes by looking at it. Today's children do not know how to do that. Now, why do I know how to do it and they not know how to do it? Because I was taught how to do it, and they have not been taught how to do it. Class, you need to fire your superintendent, your principals, and all of your teachers. They're all in it together. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, richardallenmiller.com. Rick, how much salt do you add?
How much what do I add?
How much salt, S-A-L-T, do you add? Do you use regular salt? Do you use rock salt? How much do you add?
I don't. I get it from vegetables. I don't ever use salt on anything.
I thought you're making so much noise there. I thought you were making ice cream with a hand.
That's my garbage can going down a quarter mile. I'm checking out old bow hunting platforms down by the pond, etc. What?
I thought you were about at the point where you added salt to the ice to make it even colder for a hand crank
you can
ice
do
finisher.
that by pulling a partial pressure, by putting a squirrel cage fan on top of your drying shed, and now it'll dry 4 times faster, even though it's like a quarter of an ounce or less pressure variance in grade. That's because of the...
Is that using mercury? Is that using a mercury column?
Yeah, just fans pulling air. In other words, I have fans blowing on my crops. I put a big squirrel cage fan on the top so that everything goes concave inward. It dries 4 times faster. Did you know that?
So, Rick, do you recommend dehydrating produce? Do you recommend dehydrating herbs as we go forward? And how would you do it if you do?
Yes. There's so many different ways. Yesterday, I met a man that has his own aircraft. I'm going somewhere with this. That is flying in with his 3 sons, with Rex Bear driving up 19 hours. He does the LEAP project with his 5-year-old. And what these kids are going to do is rebuild my hydroponic system, which was on a 2nd floor, and I'm bringing it down to the 1st floor, prepping it for winter. Because I got stalled, my goal is to show the kids how to take this aquaponic thing and go into the winter, growing all their food all through winter. Tomatoes, spinach, etc. And it's cheap. It's better than dirt. You can, doesn't need the sunlight. You could be in a closed system. And the kids get it. And then I say to the kids, okay, that's what I wanted you to know. What is it that you really want to know? And you know what they're asking me? They want to know metaphysics. What is metaphysics? Well, it's something that goes beyond physics because physics isn't right. Physics does not have the answers. Have you noticed how it's always changing? The laws. You know, there's no such thing as gravity anymore. The Earth sucks. I'm that's a nice graffiti. It makes it all sensible. There's something else going on here. And the kids get it, and the adults have too much fear. I've been exploring how altered states of consciousness change the laws of physics. I saw a woman rip a car door off to save her daughter, a little tiny woman. That's impossible. That's impossible. There's no way she could be stronger than the steel. And yet I thought, how does that work? Well, anything you can possibly imagine that God could do is only halfway to God and what you're probably capable of this lifetime if you were to properly train your mind like all your saint history has told you to do. But no, we're going to have an apocalypse instead, because everything happens for a reason, and everything leads to something better. Right now we have social distancing that should have happened, 10 years ago? Now we have the possibility of educational reform, where the children can do things we can't because they don't know they can't do it. And because they don't know they can't do it, that's where innovation comes in and limits my ability. And
well, that's right. That's exactly right, Rick, because when I was teaching high school and elementary school, K through 12, I was teaching computer science to every student in the school system and the teachers. I didn't know there were any rules. And because I didn't know there were any rules, I was unbounded. And it was great. Absolutely great. I did whatever I wanted when I wanted. And the only time I got in trouble was when other teachers complained that I was out of control and I was doing things that I shouldn't do. And actually, they were wrong. They were feeling limited by the educational system. I felt there were no limits. I felt, the end of the school day at 3:05, that wasn't law. That was just a suggestion. So if I kept my classes late because the students wanted to learn more, I did it. I didn't know that it was a law that said you can't keep your children longer because they want to know more. So I'm glad. I'm glad.
I've got a plan. When I was 19, what was it,
10 seconds.
1958, I was taking my chemistry, chemcraft, and making gunpowder. With saltpeter,
sulfur and charcoal. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, we're out of time. We're out of time. Rick, see you next week. Thank you for being with us. Above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next, class, is up to you.